Welcome back. Welcome to today's programming tutorial. Today we are going to put some finishing touches on a game again, so be sure that you have clicked the link below the video so that you see this project. Be sure you're logged in and make sure that you press that remix button to make your own copy of the project. Take you on a quick tour of this game. It's basically a maze game. When I press the green arrow, I have an intro screen. I have kind of a play button that is a cat, but we'll deal with him later. When I press that play button, then I have to maneuver this player through the maze. She's always moving forward, and I can turn her with my left arrow key and my right arrow key. Hopefully you have a keyboard. Then the best thing is once you reach the goal, it makes it a little bit harder and lets you play again with a little faster speed. So you want to see how many times you can get through this maze and how fast you can do it. Now our mission today is to make this game a little harder by giving you a set amount of time that you have to reach the end of the maze before that clock runs out. And so in the last video, yesterday's lesson, we did a timer, a stopwatch that counted up. Today we're going to do a timer that counts down. Take a second to be sure that you are in the brain of the player. And in the player's brain, there is a lot of code floating around that kind of makes the program work. But hopefully in the top left, you should see a block that says when I receive begin, and it's a little comment that says you're going to add code there. So we are going to begin to add code there. So make sure you have your bearings right. You're in the correct spot. And then let's go click the orange variables and let's make a variable. Let's call this clock. Okay, and so when the game begins, instead of having the clock start at 0 and count up, we want to have the clock start high and count down. So to get the clock going, we will say set the clock and make sure you have selected clock there. And just for right now, we will put 5 seconds on the clock. So we'll say set the clock to be 5. And then what we need to do is we need to have that clock count down as the game plays. Now, technically, you could kind of drag out a whole bunch of blocks to make that happen. So don't build this code, but you could do this. Set the clock to be 5, wait, and make it go down to 4, and wait, and make it go down to 3, and wait, and make it go down to 2, wait, make it go down to 1, wait, and make it go down to 0. So that would actually give you a ticking clock. That is true. 4, 3, 2, 1, right? But here is the thing. That is not the best way to do that, because what if I decide I want to have 10 seconds on the clock? If I put a 10 here, now my timer doesn't work because my timer only counts down 5 times. Beautiful. So what we're going to say is, instead of taking this approach, what I want you to notice is that wait and change happens over and over and over again. So let's do this. What I would rather say is wait and change needs to repeat itself over and over and over again. So I'm going to grab this forever loop and I'm going to feed the wait and the change into that loop and make sure that that change is changing by -1. So you have a set at the top and a change by -1. So take a second if you need to, pause the video and get that code built. Okay, let's test that out. And again, we're just looking at the clock up there, 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2. So it is working. The bad news is it's working a little too much because it keeps going, right? Forever and ever and ever. But that's because we have our forever loop in there. So our timer is too good and we need to make it a little less awesome. Again, I really don't like forever loops. You've probably heard me say that before. What I want to do is I want this to count down a certain amount of times until the game is over. So I would say, I could technically do this type of loop. I think a better way is to do this guy. So I'm going to switch out. And here's what I'm going to say to you. I'm going to challenge you to see if you can figure out what goes here in the stopping condition. So remember, this is like your stop sign. And so what about the clock is going to tell me it's time to stop counting? So what about the clock, if I were watching this, tells me the game is over? So I want you to think about that, see if you can fill in that stop sign, and then we're going to test your code. Okay, so your mission is, hopefully you see something that looks like this on the clock. The clock is counting down, and it stops at that point. So see if you can make your code do that exact type of thing before we move on. Okay, so hopefully you got that to work appropriately and it's gorgeous. Now this is a beautiful loop because the amazing thing is I can put anything I want to here and that loop will count me down appropriately. So I can make one change in my code. I can say, actually, I want this to start at 8. And then when I run it, it will count down from 8 all the way down to 0, and it stops. Congratulations, your timer is awesome. It counts all the way down to 0, no matter what number we put in there, and that is good computer code. So the only thing is once that timer runs out, I don't like the fact that I'm still playing the game, right? When the timer runs out, I should be done. What we need to do is after it is done repeating, we need to do that old familiar trick where we switch the backdrop. So let's throw in a switch of backdrop to the loser screen. And I'm going to put this back on 5 again. So actually, I'm going to put it on 3 because it'll be faster. So here we go. And then let's give that a test. Perfect. So we have seen that this little repeat block will count us down to 0 no matter what number we put in here. What we're going to do is we're going to ask the person at the keyboard how much time they want on the clock. So it's a customizable game. To do that, we are going to leave the player's brain and we are going to go over to the cat's brain. Now you can have 2 cats, but I want the one that's not flying. So make sure you click on the cat over here. And basically all he does is when the game starts, he shows up and he says, click me to begin. But what I would love for him to do is ask me a question. So remember, a say block is just that word bubble. But if I go into sensing, then I can grab this ask block that would ask a question and get an answer, which is amazing. So I want to rearrange just a little bit. I want to ask them a question before I tell them that they can start to play. And I don't care about their name. That's not the question I want to ask. Let's say, how much time do you want on the clock? If you want to see what's going on, you can click this little checkbox to see their answer, except for my clock is in the way. But you can see that for right now. I'm gonna turn it off later, but really answer is just a variable that's already built in. So whatever they type is gonna go into that box and I will prove it to you. So pause real quickly, make sure in the cat's brain, you have kind of rearranged these last 2 blocks. Okay, when I press the green flag, he asked me a question. I have an option to answer him. I'm gonna put in 10. And then watch this. When I press that check mark, that 10 goes into this little place called answer. So it almost gets stored almost like in a bucket named answer. I'm gonna stick it right there so I can remember it later. And if I need it later, I can grab that and look at it. Now, the only problem is whatever that number is that they said, I need to get that number put onto the clock. So let's go back into the player's brain. And then right here, what we have is I'm saying set the clock to be 3, no matter what. But what I would love is to put whatever they said, and whatever they said is in that place called answer. So I can pick that up, whoops, and put it in the right spot, put it right here and say, when the game starts, just take whatever is in that spot and move it over into this spot. And then we know that that repeat block will count down for us. So make sure that you've made that change in the player's brain, and let's go test it out. Okay, I'm going to press the green flag to start the game. How much time do I want on the clock? I'm going to say 4 seconds. And watch this. So that is 4. Now it doesn't go here until we start the game. So this 4 is sitting here in answer. When I click him, you'll notice that 4 went down into the clock down there and starts counting down. Oh, I'm a loser. So what I would love for you to do is run your program again and try any other number. Try a couple of different numbers to make sure that the number you type in goes onto the clock appropriately and starts to count down. So congratulations, you have a functioning game. If you're happy with that, go to town, go play that game. See if you can make it past speed 5, because I cannot. I can only do speed 3, 4, and then I die on 5. So try that out. But if you want to add a little extra, what we could do is we could change the way this character looks towards the end of the game. So when you're almost out of time, it could show you visually that you need to be stressed out trying to get to that goal. So let's do this. If you want to get a little fancy, when this clock is ticking, what we could do is we could ask a question. And what we want to know is if we are almost out of time. So I'm going to go to operators and I'm going to find there's a few of these that would fit in here. Now make sure you grab the correct one, the less than sign. The less than sign is that one in the middle. It'll fit right there. And I want to know if I'm almost out of time. So I'm going to go look at the clock and I will say, hey, if the clock is less than, and I'm going to say 5 seconds because that means, you know, you're almost there. You have just a little bit of time left to get done. And then if the clock is less than 5, I could change something about the way that the character looks. And I think the easiest way to do that is to grab one of these change blocks. And I don't have to just change the color. I could change the ghost effect is also pretty cool. Some of those other ones are a little weird and wouldn't help too much, but you could actually put more than one in there if you want to. And then you have to make sure you put this in the correct spot. So I would say, I don't want this to happen when the game's over. So if I put it right here, it's only going to do this after it's done counting down. So it would count down and then it would come here and say, oh yeah, the clock is 0, right? So that is the wrong spot. I want it to happen over and over and over again. So I'm going to say 7 seconds on the clock. And so the color change will start now. 4, 3, 2, 1. The ghost effect is also really cool. You could also play maybe a short sound in there and use the start sound block so you could feel the clock ticking on you. So you could do all sorts of interesting things down here and you could adjust when you want those things to happen. Congratulations, you have a countdown timer, you have user input, the player can decide how long the clock is going to last. So go see if you can put 20 seconds on the clock and see if you can clear the first level and the second level and the third level. And I'm going to challenge you to see if you can get past speed 5 because I cannot. So good luck and see what you can do and have fun playing your game.